like let's start with America. In America, unfortunately, like racism is kind of like baked in the system in most sectors, not only sports. By being baked, I mean that you can't just remove it. Like for example, if there's a cake that has been baked, na imekwa, it's been baked with, let's say, raisins.
So most of us have heard about the Brian Flores situation. So now, to provide context, Flores was a coach for the Miami Dolphins for, I think, 3 seasons. I could be wrong. 2 or 3 seasons. So he came in, and then, at one point in time, they were just trading their drafts. They were just trading in people, bringing in people. They traded away many of their high prospect players for draft consideration. So when it came to the draft last year, I think they capitalized, or they tried to capitalize, by drafting guys or whatever. Anyway, they had a season, yada yada yada. They fared well. Maybe he won very many games towards the end, but he ended up being fired. So came out allegations of the racism. Like in one instance, for example, let's just to provide context, he went for an interview with the Denver Broncos. When he got there, when he arrived, Akina John Elway and the persons, the peoples, they came in there drunk.
Wow.
Madogodanio. With the Giants, the New York Giants, he was texting with Coach Belichick. So it ended up being that with Coach Belichick, what happened was, I guess they communicated through text, and he sent a text. So Belichick sent a text. I think they got you, whatever. So he didn't know that, Belichick didn't know he was texting who? Flores. But I think he meant to text another Brian. So, and I think, like, now, of course, when it came out that with, like, Miami Dolphins just being told to tank the season, for every loss, he'd be given 100,000 or whatever. And I think this brought some questions, like, fine, maybe this explains why it is so hard to hire a black coach. Because, like, with the Denver Broncos, they ended up going with Nick Fangio, who lasted maybe 2 seasons and then was fired. I don't even know where the Giants are. But Flores, even if his record was, I think, 23 and 24 or something like that, towards the end, because he also suffered injuries or whatever, but he was still fired even with like an 8-4 record. No, towards the end, he was let go. And it got me thinking, and I think we're discussing this off the show, like, why is it that why is it that so much value, or is it that white coaches save black coaches? And we can see this sometimes even with, like, Kenyan sports. I'm going to say rugby and soccer. Because I've always believed, I think, that we have talent, so much talent, and especially players or persons who have played at the higher level who can actually coach Harambee Stars. With rugby, we were evident. We saw that, because it's like it's hard to hire a local former player, guy who is in rugby, but quick to hire a white guy. But unfortunately, all those two, they always go through the same frustrations. Mike Friday. frustrations. I think there's one time they had a guy from Fiji or something. Frustrations. Simiu, innocent. Uh
The
Ayimba,
late.
the
Yeah.
late, rest in peace. Fighting for the players. I mean, so Ali, like, saa zingine, I don't, is inferiority complex? I don't, well, not that I don't get it. It's like now the coach for the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs.
You know, okay. When it comes, like let's start with America. In America, unfortunately, like racism is kind of like baked in the system in most sectors, not only sports. By being baked, I mean that you can't just remove it. Like for example, if there's a cake that has been baked, na imekwa, it's been baked with, let's say, raisins, and you don't like raisins, so you're trying to find a portion of the cake. Even those people who are actively trying to navigate around this systemic racism, it's difficult. You're trying to find a portion of the cake that doesn't have the raisins, and it's impossible because that cake was baked with raisins. So unless like a new cake is baked, you're still operating within that same process. So I think like this systemic, not that the people who are perpetrating them don't know, but they've been so normalized that they don't see if some of what is in this alleged in this suit is true, that like the people who are coming to interview him were actually drunk, showing that they were not taking the interview seriously. I think that's a problem, because I think there's a minimum requirement that for these positions you have to interview, these leadership positions like head coach, offensive coordinator, and blah blah blah, you have to interview a minority. So I think what happens is that some of these teams, like select, like they decide they want to check a box. So they call a number of minorities, interview them. So akiulizwa, oh, by the way, we did interview these minorities. And I think some of these black coaches are seeing that, and I know that. What I personally don't quite get is sports, is one of those things. It's not like a corporate job. Sports is one of those things, like where your result is left there in the field. So if you have a coach, like if you have a coach who's better, who gives you a better chance to win, I don't see why you would look at race, like and pick one who will give you a lesser chance of winning. Because sports, you make money by winning. You make money by winning. So
Right.
so I don't get that part. Like even if you don't like like black people, but if they're giving your team an opportunity to win, I'm not understanding why they would pick someone else.
I think this goes back to what we had said earlier in terms of entrenched racism. Or maybe there's a different discussion with Bandio in a different show. I think sometimes it's so entrenched that a guy who may qualify, Ali who is qualified in matters finance, like he checks all the boxes, like in terms of this guy is knowledgeable, he has been this, he has been this, he has been this, versus a guy who was probably a tight end coach somewhere comes in, or a guy who was just doing accounts for kids is being given the CFO for a small, medium business, versus somebody who probably has proven his worth, and just because you're black. And I think that is the issue. I think that has to. Once we break out of that, there are very many coaches who are qualified, black coaches, guys who have done so well, who are capable of leading teams and probably even winning the Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin was, and I remember one press conference that Tomlin had, because the the Pittsburgh Squealers had gone through a losing streak. And the reporter had the nerve to ask him if he's gonna go to coach college. because of the losing streak. And if I can't remember the name of the coach but he said, are you going to ask this same question and it was a white coach.
Yeah.
Are you going to ask the same question to this guy? Ideally saying,
sometimes you need to do that.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to be aggressive and show them that you know exactly what they're trying to do.
But unfortunately, when majority of the reporters themselves ni wazungu, people who are writing columns or whatever ni wazungu, majority of the guys who are having shows or the lead shows or whatever in sports or whatever are wazungu, and the feeling, and of course there's a feeling of entitlement. Of course it becomes hard, because if you're one, like now Tomlin is one of how many? Until Flores, who's the other black coach in the NFL?
I don't think there's any other. But there's Tomlin. I don't know. Is there any other black coach in the NFL right now?
No, I don't think so. Unless you're an offensive coach, but a head coach, there's none.
Now, when you look at basketball, for example, basketball has done a better job, like in trying to curb this. However, in basketball, you still see issues like a first-time coach like Steve Nash, like Brooklyn Nets, getting a team that's supposedly, supposedly that's built to win a title. When you have people like Mark Jackson, who built that original Golden State Warriors.
They're the ones who build it.
Yeah. You have him, he doesn't have, he's still on TV.
Yes, he's still,
I don't think he's been offered any job. So you still see these things happening, and you wonder, when you go to a place like Premier League, Manchester United, for example, like Ole Gunnar, like who was, I think also a first-time, like a first-time coach.
Good question.
Yeah.
Who there's only one black coach that I know, but I think he was with Norwich, and I think they lost, and then he got fired, and then they were relegated.
Right now, I think Crystal Palace has Patrick Vieira.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But there's still, like a tendency not to look at black people as coaches. Look at African soccer teams.
Aha.
Look at African soccer teams. Now, let's take Kenya, for example. Like, with the exception of Reinhard Fabish, there's no evidence that I have seen to show that the white coaches that we've hired did a better job. Kenya has not been doing well in soccer for a very long time. But there's no evidence, like that I have seen to show that there's, there's better results that come from the white coaches that we hire than our own Kenyan coaches.